talking about international financial markets. What did we cover initially? International finance. What is international finance? And then we spoke about international banking. All these were, like we said, an introductory part in the international banking and finance. Then we spoke about balance of payment. And now we are going to talk about international financial markets. That we have seen what is financial markets. Financial markets are markets where financial instruments are bought and sold. So in equity markets, we have a different set of instruments, and in the debt market, we have a different set of instruments that are bought and sold. So what is international financial market is? Financial market where you can invest or borrow across your national and political boundaries. So we call that as international finance. So international financial markets, where what happens is you can raise funds. Companies can raise funds and government can raise funds issuing international financial instruments across the globe. That is what it means from fundraisers' point of view. From investors' point of view, I can invest in different markets across my national and political boundaries. Foreign में investment करना, like equity market में invest करना, debt market में invest करना, etc. So we will focus on what are the international financial instruments. Everything, see, financial instruments represents a claim that you have on a certain sum of money after a after a certain date. But this is what we are going to talk about. What kind of instruments can be floated to raise capital or to raise funds from the overseas. Equity market, we will majorly focus on ADR, GDR and FDI. FDI we have already seen. I will even say FPI, but then all these things we have already seen. And then when I talk about debt market, we will see about bonds. These are all long-term instruments, whatever I'm talking about. You have different kinds of bonds, foreign bonds and euro bonds. And we will see about what other instruments are there, short-term instruments and long-term instruments and medium-term instruments. We will see all these in detail. Now that was the introduction for the chapter. Now we will go directly into the chapter. So when I talk about equity instruments, we may see majorly your global depository receipts, American depository receipts, American depository shares and foreign currency convertible bonds, right? So when I spoke about all these instruments, it is basically the foreign exchange rates that facilitate the investment portion of it. Exchange rate changes were, what happens is when exchange rates were moving up and down, we are able to convert the currency and invest, right? So that is banks facilitate this. Now we will talk directly about the issues. When I say euro issue, what is a euro issue? It is made in a country, right? If I make an issue in India, but the issue in the sense like if I float a security to raise capital, maybe a bond. If I float a bond and the bond is floated in India and the bond is denominated in US dollar, any currency other than Indian currency, because it is floated in India and I'm not denominating it in Indian national rupee, it is called as an euro issue. Are you following? So these are made through instruments denominated in foreign currency, as I said. Okay, denominated in foreign currency. And these are listed in European stock exchanges. And people may come and subscribe from any part of the world because it is denominated in a foreign currency. And most of the Indian companies get their issues listed in Luxembourg Stock Exchange. Now talking about depository receipts. What are depository receipts? I would want to explain you the process before going directly into it. See, when an Indian company wants to raise fund, by using equity instruments, issuing equity instruments, what it will do is it cannot issue equity shares directly. For example, Reliance India Limited wants to issue equity capital to foreigners. So what it will do, it will go to, supposing it chooses to raise capital from America. Now it will go to America and it will not be able to issue equity shares today. It will issue it in the form of depository receipt. What is depository receipt is, it is a collection of shares. They make it into depository. It can be one share equal to one depository receipt, two shares equal to one depository receipt, etc. And before that, when we spoke last time, did you understand in primary market or when a company wants to issue shares, what is the process? Do you remember that? So if you don't, I'm going about it again. See, whenever a company wants, say, let's talk about a local issue. A company wants to raise capital by issuing equity shares. So what it will do is, it will first float its prospectus, get approval from SEBI, and then get approval from all the concerned authority and start appointing a lead manager. Lead manager's job is to market the issue, and then later on it also does other jobs, like it will coordinate with the depository, etc. Now what next step is, it is going to appoint a depository. What it will do is, it will surrender all the physical shares to the depository. Physical share, the company will not issue it to the public, but it will surrender it to the depository. Supposing it is issuing 100 shares, 100 shares will have to be surrendered to the depository, converted to electronic form. So in the company's name, supposing I say the company's name is ABC Limited, right? ABC Limited. In its credit, the depository says 100 shares credit. ये दिखा रहा है, right? Now, what the depository is now going to do, once prospectus is floated and people have started buying the shares, an allotment has to take place. So this 100 shares get debited slowly, gradually, and then gets passed on to the subscribers accounts or investors accounts. From company's credit, it becomes zero and it gets passed on to your demat accounts. That is how it happens. Same way, if it is going to happen in a foreign country, the issuing company will issue depository receipts. If I said it has chosen America to raise capital from, so what it will do, it will appoint a depository there. Now it is going to seek SEBI's permission, Government of India's permission, and then it will seek the SEC से Securities Exchange Commission in US उसका permission लेगी, सब जगह से permission जो चाहिए ले लेगी, and then it says I'm going to raise capital from the US, and it is going to be denominated in a convertible currency. So now what happens is, these shares are, it is going to appoint a depository in the foreign land also, and जितने shares के लिए raise करना चाहती है, वो बोलती है कि, see, supposing I want to raise capital by issuing 100 shares, and these 100 shares will be surrendered to the depository there in the foreign country. So when it surrenders 100 shares, say ABC Limited has surrendered 100 shares to the depository in USA. So these 100 shares are now going to be converted into depository receipts, which the depository decides. It says that 5 shares equal to 1 DR. So in all, it will be issuing 20 DRs. Are you following? DR matlab depository receipt. Are you following? So the depository, these shares get converted to depository receipt. Every 5 shares are converted to 1 depository receipt. And whenever investors are subscribing for, they will get the depository receipt credited to their account. And these shares are all called as ADS, American Depository Shares. I found it here, American Depository Shares. These shares which are surrendered to the depository are called as American Depository Shares. Now, since my company is raising capital from America, every single share is surrendered to the American Depository, called as American Depository Shares. So now these shares are converted to depository receipts and then are issued to the subscribers or allotted to the subscribers. That is how it works. So that is what we say as depository receipt. When it is raised, when capital is raised from America, when we are going to appoint a depository in America, we call it as ADR. ADR. And if it is raised from any other country, we call it as GDR, Global Depository Receipt. Okay. So when it is raised from America, we call it as ADR. When it is raised from any part of the world, it is general name hai GDR, Global Depository Receipt. And general name is Global Depository Receipt. If you are raising it from America, we call it as American Depository Receipt. We call it as EDR, European Depository Receipt, or IDR, International Depository Receipt. Sorry. So I will repeat. See, whenever I want to raise capital from foreign countries, I cannot issue my equity shares directly. I will have to convert them to depository receipts. Depository receipt is a certificate issued by the depository bank, which purchases my shares. Whichever depository I appoint, they are going to issue the certificate against these shares of foreign companies, and then it is going to go to the it is going to go to the investors as allotment if you have subscribed for it. That is what it means. So I will have to appoint a depository which will convert all my shares to depository receipt, and then it is going to be issued to the investors. It represents ownership in a particular country. But as against your normal equity share, the GDRs do not carry any voting right. Kindly note that GDRs do not carry voting right. I will, and then are you following this? Any doubts? And each GDR represents a certain number of underlying shares. I hope I'm clear. Do you all have any doubts? Does anybody have a doubt? Are you able to understand?
मैम हाँ मैम हाँ जस्ट आई हैव अ क्वेश्चन कि जब हमें आउट कंट्री के अदर कंट्री का इक्विटी शेयर्स लाइक शेयर्स परचेस करना होता है तो हमें उसे डिपॉजिटरी में ट्रांसफर करना होता है ना राइट और
I did not get your question. Sorry, can you come again?
मैम जब हमें अदर कंट्री का शेयर्स परचेस करना होता है तो हमें इक्विटी शेयर्स जो भी होता है उसको डिपॉजिटरी में कन्वर्ट करना होता है
डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट में वो लोग कन्वर्ट करके हमें देंगे. सी अभी कोई भी फॉरेन कंट्री से आप डायरेक्ट इक्विटी शेयर्स इश्यू करके कैपिटल नहीं रेज कर सकते हो. अभी एक इंडियन कंपनी जाके यूएस से कैपिटल रेज करना है तो वो क्या करेगी, वो अपना शेयर्स को डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट में कन्वर्ट करेगी वहां के डिपॉजिटरी के थ्रू, एंड देन इट इज इश्यूड टू द इन्वेस्टर्स. मैं तो शेयर ही दूंगी यहाँ से, इंडियन कंपनी विल गिव शेयर्स टू द डिपॉजिटरी, but the depository there will convert it to depository receipts and issue it to the investors. समझ में आया?
हाँ मतलब जब हमें कैपिटल मनी चाहिए होगी, कैपिटल चाहिए होगा तो हम डिपॉजिटरी को देंगे तो वो लोग डिपॉजिटरी हमें रेस फंड करके देंगे.
नहीं, depository is only an institution which will convert your physical shares to electronic form. ठीक है? अभी अगर इंडिया में ही रेस करना है डायरेक्टली इक्विटी शेयर इश्यू कर सकते, बट अगर मुझे फॉरेन से लेना है तो डिपॉजिटरी क्या करती है, मुझे एक डिपॉजिटरी पक्का अपॉइंट करना है, उसका भी पेमेंट लगता है. से इफ आई अपॉइंट अ डिपॉजिटरी, मैं इतना शेयर वहां पे इश्यू करके कैपिटल इतना रेज करना चाहती हूँ, ये मैंने बता दिया। तो वो डिपॉजिटरी क्या करेगी, इट विल कन्वर्ट इट टू डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट, मतलब हर 10 शेयर का एक जीडीआर बनेगा। सो यू कैन बाय ओनली मल्टीपल्स ऑफ 10, इन्वेस्टर्स मल्टीपल्स ऑफ 10 में ही खरीद सकते हैं, एक जीडीआर, दो जीडीआर ऐसे खरीद सकते हैं। डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड? इन्वेस्टर को डिपॉजिटरी रिसीट के फॉर्म में जाएगा।
ओके, समझ में आया,
हाँ,
समझ में।
investor cannot buy individual shares. Investors will buy as depository receipts. Any doubts so far? Clear, all of you? So now coming to the parties involved in GDR.